Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today I'm going to be talking about the ticker TTOO, T2 Biosystems Corporation. So I'm going to go through technical analysis here, and then I'm going to go through an overview of the company and how I think it's going to be trading and what I would do approaching the stock. Make sure to drop a like to this video to help this channel grow. Subscribe and turn notifications on to get the latest out of these videos. Let's jump right into it. So we get to see here that the stock has dipped below the 50 SMA. So that is a bit of a bearish sign. Usually people put stop limits just underneath the 50 SMA, around 149 or so. So that's definitely a bit of more of a stop loss kind of rate that happened there. 10 SMA is still above the 30 SMA, so that is bullish. And you get to see that that is a trading action zone where reversals are likely. And you get to see that it did play before here and once again here. Now, this is more of a red week, so it really did drop quite a bit. But we need to look a little bit closer to the 1 hour intervals. The stock price is still above the 200 SMA, so it still labels it bullish. And that's definitely a golden star that we're seeing here. It did play through and did jump all the way to 220, but no golden star, Death Star seen. Well, no Death Star is seen here in the close future, so that's a good sign. Now, just a quick thing. Golden star is when the 50 SMA crosses the 200 SMA from the bottom. Death Star is the opposite. Average directional index is around 38.5. Doesn't tell us much because it was more indicating about the uptrend that we've seen already. Stock is insanely oversold, so that is a good news for us if we want to pick it up at a cheaper price. Momentum here is a little bit choppy, hasn't recovered really much. It might dip just a little bit more in terms of momentum, but definitely would see a bit of more recovery there, hopefully in the next week. Now, the MACD has gone negative. So the reversal has seen on the 12th of August and has continued to go there. So that's a little bit of a dangerous scenario that we're looking at. But definitely we need to consider a bit more on the 1 hour intervals. So on the 1 hour intervals, what we're seeing here is something a little bit different. So on the 1 hour interval here, this is the Death Star that I was referring to. And you see that on the 1 hour scale where it does dip as well over on from the day, going in from around 1.6 to 145. Now, it is still recovering in from the day on the extended market for today, around 135 in the aftermarket. So that is a bit of a good sign there that it is actually moving, and you get to see on the MACD that it's seeing a little bit of a reversal, though the strength of the reversal isn't clear. On the ADX, it shows that there is a possibility of a trend forming at 2156. You're seeing on the million percent R that it did go from oversold to neutral, and momentum seems to be a little bit recovered from what it dipped down on the 12th of August, where momentum has dipped significantly. Now, 30 EMA is above the 10 SMA, so that is bearish, and the stock is under the 200 SMA. So on the averages here, moving averages, the stock does look bearish, but what we're seeing here is that it is really bottoming out, and that is a good sign. So we need to look at supports and resistances and news that are coming in. So what has caused this to dip a little? Moving on here, you get to see the stock moving band, which is in blue and purple in the middle. You get to see that the stock is trading on the bottom part of it, and it's actually below there. So what do you expect is that the stock trades between 150 and 167, and if we get lucky, you might see it up to 183. That's in terms of oscillation there. Unbalanced volume has decreased quite a little. I mean, if it does actually dip even a little bit further, I do imagine a lot of people would want to buy this stock even more. Now, in terms of this massive crash that it has seen, we need to look a little bit into supports and resistances. But before doing so, we need to look a little bit into the 3 months, 1 day, draw Fibonacci retracements from there, and then move on. So the top is 231, and then we're seeing a bottom of 0.526. And then we're going to go through the 1 hour interval here. And you get to see on the 1 hour intervals, we see a support of 141. On Fibonacci, closer to it, we see 145 on the support, and that seems to be a really strong support. It did bottom out twice, so this could be considered very much of a double bottom, but it really isn't because there's a lot of actions that happen between here and there. Above that, we're seeing support on 148, and that's been tested before as well, and then 149. And it almost feels like a send over, so right now resistance is at 150, and whether it passes it or dips on Monday to 145, there is a possibility that does happen, and I'll talk about it later on in the video. 152 in terms of the resistance after that, and then we're seeing 155. Well, actually, sorry, 154, and then 155. And then with stocks like this, where it does dip quite a bit, you get to see a resistance every cent up to 156 and going every cent up to 162. Not an ideal situation, but there's a lot of different movements that happen here that was choppy, that created different resistances. But definitely the big resistance I would say is 160, where you can see a double bottom here formed, and it did test it twice from 160, and then 162 on the Fibonacci retracement, and then we're seeing 165. Now, in terms of trends and whatnot, let's quickly try to identify two things here. So this is something I don't really use much. It's called the Fibonacci arc. It doesn't tell us here much anything. It just basically says parts where a reversal might be likely, where it hits that band, but nothing significant here, not enough time. Let's try to identify here a trend line that might have been perhaps broken. And we're going to go even further down to 6 months. So this trend line has been broken. I'm sorry, just going to go through here. This trend line has not been broken, going on to down to 105 in terms of the bottom. Now this one has been broken. You get to see that it has been broken just recently, and that was a trend line that was formed all the way back in May. So that is definitely a bit more of a concern, but the current trend line would be the bottom of this trade, and you want to make sure that it does kind of bottom out a little. It is definitely still up from where March dip was, around 23 cents, but the company's entire business aspect has changed. And I'm gonna go here quickly and show you, before we do so, the estimate of the earnings, and then we're gonna go on through the company's overview. Actually, yeah, so I'm gonna go on through here. And then, so what we're trying to look for, that's different charts. Trying to look for is the estimated. You get to see that it did actually beat the earnings, both EPS and revenue. And so what you get to see a lot of what's happening here is people buying the rumor and selling the news, but definitely should have not had that kind of reaction. Now, moving on towards company news. So first I'm going to go through presentation, and you get to see that they do have different things around here. For instance, $2 billion+ initial market potential, and they have dipped as well into the COVID-19 kind of testing area. So the challenge of detecting sepsis causing pathogens, and they basically have it in 72 hours or so. Each hour of delayed treatment increases mortality risk nearly by 8%. And you get to see that they have actually a really good product here that does detect it. I believe, what was it, in 3 to 5 hours compared to 1 to 5 days where the actual current market is. And with 8% per hour, that is a significant increase in terms of performance. So part of it is that they also have the TTOO SARS-CoV-2 with a 95% sensitivity and 100% reliability on there. So basically it's available now and ready to ship, so you might actually see that results as well in quarter 3, where it comes in a bit stronger. Testing is still needed in terms of a lot of places in the world, and this one here has a direct detection of the virus for PT-PCR with results in less than 2 hours. So in places, for instance, like I've heard, I believe Texas or whatnot, some other places in the States do have a lot of delays, so they can benefit out of this one. So there is potential for this market still, and it runs on FDA cleared T2DX instruments, and so there is potential there in terms of the market itself, and you might hear PR coming in towards on there. Now, I'm not going to go through the exact details of the entire company here, but just quickly going through the pipelines, you do see that they do have opportunities, for instance, for all these kind of branches on there. I'm going to go through the pipelines in a minute. In terms of the revenues and whatnot, so I'm going to go through here quickly. In terms of growth year per year, so they have cash around 36% extra cash, with an 8.9% extra cash burning rate. But in terms of revenue, you get to see an increased revenue from quarter 2 2019 from year to year. That's definitely a really nice increase, and we're going to look into that in depth here quickly. Before we move forward, we're going to look quickly through the COVID-19 response, and that was way back a bit ago. That was the panel they've created. I believe this one was, I'm not sure the timestamp on this, but this is the one on their website. Basically, exact same information I did say about regarding testing. Going on towards the pipelines, they do have basically 4 main focuses, sorry. tick-borne, fungal, bacterial, and bacterial resistance. That's still all in effect, and it goes on to 2019 and beyond here. So they definitely still have things going on in the pipelines, but I imagine the COVID-19 one is a bit of a leveraging aspect. Now, going on towards product revenue, you get to see year per year, the total revenue has increased, but the product revenue has almost stayed the exact same thing. We're talking a bit about 1.2 million compared to around 1 million, so 200,000 there decrease, but we're talking about 2.6 million compared to 1.8 million into total revenue. In terms of the net loss per share, you're seeing negative 0.09 compared to 0.35, so a really nice increase. But here's the thing: in terms of net loss, comprehensive loss, and not diluted, you're talking about 10.7 million compared to 15.7 million loss. Definitely still a good number there in terms of improvements, but still hefty losses going on from a different company. But I do see Q3 to be a bit better on there. Now, institutional values, you get to see there has been a lot of institutions that have been picking this up. Just on the last trading day, we get to see almost around 600,000 extra shares been added. Not sure exact amount of shares for this one here, but you get to see companies, for instance, like names like Morgan Stanley. I know they have decreased their share percentage by 1.7%, but they do have the stock at 99-cent average, or definitely a good average still sitting on there. You get to see Wells Fargo have increased their shares as well by almost 256%. And you get to see other big, for instance, Cube Research have bought around 129,000. So all in all, in August, it seems to be more addition to shares in the latest days than dumping of shares. So there's definitely a bit more institutional interest there on August alone than it was for instance, July. Now, going on towards the 8K news here, this was more for the votes. I haven't seen anything that is very much interesting for me that I would, in terms of red flags or whatnot. So the usual, I don't see dilution or in terms of increasing shelf shares or for instance, a reverse split. I don't even know why they would do that, but nothing significant going on there. Now, they are participating. They did participate in the annual growth conference, and that was on August 13th at 9:30 a.m. So that's been played through. And then in terms of the 10Q, I've already gone through that. So how am I going to play the stock, and what is yet to come for this one here? What I want to see is that it does stay above the 142 to 144 support, and if it does test that, I'm definitely considering jumping in. Now, the upside for this one here is basically, hypothetically speaking, we're talking about 100% increase, right? And over here, you get to see in terms of the trend lines, it does give you a percentage, right? So you get to see here that we're talking about, we're talking about 57. So inverse of that is around 100%. Now, when we're talking about, well, hold on, I'm just gonna make sure this goes here. When we're talking about the downside here, we're talking about basically 509% difference. So that's definitely losing in quite a bit more money. So it's either doubling your money or 1/5 your money. Definitely a risk, but we're talking about, even if there is a market crash, I see this one still benefiting in it because a market crash might be influenced by a bit more COVID, but I do still see more an upside for this company when it comes into the future. If it does hold the 142, 144 support and it does test it again, I'm definitely considering buying. But right now, what it's doing, it's actually falling in for a few days, and what you want to see is a little bit more off this kind of action. You get to see that it's more of doubling down, it's more of testing that support and holding on, and that's what I consider is accumulation, in my opinion. And you get to see a bit more, a little bit around here. So you get to see when it's slowing down, it's testing that resistance, it does fall down, similar to here. And you get to see that they do still bounce back from there, so that's definitely good news. But you don't want to buy it on a falling dip. You want to see where it actually holds. What do you think about this ticker? Make sure you mention down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and you have a wonderful day.